So we have another future scenario presented by Joachim Skog from Vinnova. Please join me.
Thank you.
I'll leave the stage to you.
Thank you, Beata. Yes, it's once again time to exercise our future thinking muscles. And this exercise is especially important in these days. The speed of change when it comes to tech, behaviors, ways of working, vastly outpaces our natural ability to adapt. So this is an ability that we need to constantly train, to train our thought regarding alternative futures. Earlier today, we heard Lars Hammarström visiting us from South Korea, talking about South Korea's sustainable steady state, or the search for it. And now it's my turn. I'm happy that you, David Jonason, policy analyst at OECD, is joining us to give us another glimpse of the future.
Good to be here.
Usually you're based in Paris,
Exactly.
but you're visiting Stockholm
Yeah.
for
Very
Eastern.
happy to be here in the studio.
Happy to have you here. So you know the rules of this game. You get 5 minutes to share your thoughts, what kind of signs of change you've seen around in the present that tells you something about the future. Are you ready?
Yes, but I probably will go over 5 minutes because I thought
I'll
it was
give
10
you
minutes.
5:30.
If I can get a little bit more. Okay, we'll see.
Sure. Okay, the stage is yours.
Thank you. So I'm here in this capacity of working at the OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, where I work on how governments can take on big challenges. So challenges that go beyond one sector, one agency, and we call this mission-oriented approaches, right? And the time that I've been at the OECD has really been marked by basically crisis after crisis, right? We have the Ukraine crisis, the whole post-pandemic recovery, the cost of living crisis, energy crisis. So the time has really been marked. If you go on the OECD and you look at all the reports coming out, the word resilience just comes out again and again. I don't think it's by chance that this is also the theme of the event today. And I think the kind of sobering fact is, at least I feel that if we look 10, 20, 30 years into the future, this is not going to stop, right? You just mentioned a lot of these technological challenges. You have economic challenges and demographic challenges. All these things coming up. So, and you know, there's a term for it. It's always nice when there's a term.
Right.
Something that makes you
Comforting.
feel, okay, I can put a label on it,
Yes.
right? And we have the term polycrisis, which is everywhere today, as it's a couple of years back. And what's interesting is I went back and looked, and when did this come back into our vocabulary? It's actually about 2016. Jean-Claude Juncker, at the time the president of the European Commission, started talking about the polycrisis because you had the Brexit, trying to govern Europe through the Brexit debt crisis, through all these different challenges of Brexit and the refugee crisis and just all these challenges. But this was 8 years ago. So here I'm getting to your scenario.
Sure.
The scenario in case is one where maybe we've gone through these different stages of grief, if you want, right? Bargaining, denial, depression, to this state of acceptance. So that we accept the polycrisis, that we learn to stop worrying and learn to love the polycrisis. And so how do we do that? I think it comes back to this classic kind of Nietzsche saying that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? So every crisis that we're facing, every challenge that we're facing in this scenario is one that of course it's never fun, we don't love them, really, but we see them also as an opportunity to get stronger. Thank you. To build our capacity to take on and adapt to these challenges one after another. And so how do we do that in practice? First of all, I think we have a lot of historic examples, some very recent one, right? The pandemic response in many countries, the speed of which they were able to take this new challenge and threat on really seemed to correlate heavily with their existing recent threats and challenges in the country. And if we think in Sweden, here in Sweden, you had, after the 2008-2009 crisis in the early 2010s, Sweden, I don't know if you remember this, but it was the rock star of the economic recovery.
Sure.
Why?
You tell me.
Because we had a huge crisis of our own in the 1990s, right? In the early 1990s, we exercised. We went to the gym. It was not fun.
The polycrisis gym.
But we came out stronger with a financial system that was more able to take on this shock, and we actually grew out of this crisis, even though we're a small export-dependent country, as I'm sure many speakers have mentioned during this conference. I'm losing this thing again in case someone is able to help them out. But until then, I'll keep going. So I'm not the first person to kind of think of this idea by far. And a couple years ago, the kind of famed economist, somewhat controversial, Nassim Taleb, you probably read this, the anti-fragility, right? I'm talking about anti-fragility, this idea that you can have anti-fragile systems that are more than robust. Robustness is that you take a punch to the face and then you get back up again. But this is that you actually get stronger from it, right? That a system that takes shocks and stresses and uncertainty and actually gets stronger from it. So this goes beyond, and the opposite, of course, is the idea of fragile system. Fragile systems, I think, are a lot of what we have been working towards recently, because they're systems that are really, it sounds bad, but they're really adapted to optimize, to be highly efficient in the current system, in the day as, business as usual sort of system. So you have lean manufacturing, and lean manufacturing, the second, it's highly efficient, very profitable, but the second something goes wrong with your supply chain, you don't have your parts and you can't deliver on the products that you need to deliver to people. So basically, to get to kind of this future, how do we actually do this? How do we build anti-fragile systems? I think, and how do we make sure that we kind of surf the wave of the poly crisis rather than just take these waves to the face? First of all, I think there's in this future, we have a sort of mind shift that we come to expect the unexpected. I think we practice, and I'm preaching to the choir here, but that we use foresight a bit like a daily habit and have that what if in our organizations as more knowing that after this crisis comes another crisis. But mostly I think we need to start learning really from one challenge to another. So take one challenge, the lessons, and apply them to another one, from one sector to another. And I think, of course, the OECD as an organization is really designed to do this, as be a forum for learning across sectors. But it's also increasingly, I think, about learning from one sector to another. So I think that's basically the scenario here, is where we've had this mind shift. And I think it also is about taking on big challenges that aren't necessarily a crisis, because those also transfer. And of course, here I'm talking about missions, because it's part of my work.
You're allowed to.
But if you are able to take on big societal challenges today, it not only gives you what's called positive options, so the ability to actually make advantage of changes in the system, but it also helps you train that muscle. So we can see this kind of dual benefit as things progress. That's the scenario.
Beautiful.
Yeah?
I think you're talking about hope, that we all should be more like filled with hope regarding the future. Not see the crisis as the end of the world, but rather like hope for the future.
It's a classic silver lining, right? That's a dark cloud.
Let's and like never waste a good crisis.
Yeah. Exactly.
I recently visited the Long Now Foundation, which they don't talk about the humanity in or the future in 10 or 20 or 30 years. They talk about 10,000s of years. So they were founded not in 2014, but in 2014.
Right.
Just having the mindset that we're here to stay, and that's really like you said it yourself, having that mindset. Whose responsibility? I mean, how do we get there? How can we as a community, as a society, gain that mindset?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting example from the Long Now Foundation, just having this tool, they reframe things, and you change the numbers on a clock, and suddenly you think in a different way. I think we are seeing, cultural shifts happen. They kind of sneak up on you. You don't notice it, and suddenly you think about something very differently. And we're all part of that kind of conversation, fundamentally. But these aren't like simple things. It's just there's many actors involved. This has come out of how politics are happening, I think. Fundamentally, we are, to some extent, you can't get around it. This is about politics. Yeah. But also leadership from industry, from from civil society, kind of across the board. But I think it will sneak up on us.
So never waste a good polycrisis.
Yeah.
You break stuff, but when they heal, they get stronger.
Exactly.
Thank you, David.
So, thank
Happy
you.
to have you here.
Good to be here.